It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
They told me that sometimes they feel rejected. They feel mostly accepted, but every now and again they feel rejected. And it was just that, I guess, uppercut. It was like that little punch to the chops that reminded me that it's really hard to get this right all the time.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Well, the countdown to school holidays is on. In fact, in Queensland, a whole lot of schools, including the public school just down the road from us, on holidays already. Our kids, they're breathing a sigh of relief for the next 6 weeks. No more school. I think New South Wales, Victoria, most states have got 2 weeks to go today, Kylie. But I guess things are starting to slow down. Class parties. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about something from a school not far from us, Budrum on the Sunshine Coast. There was a news article that appeared just recently that caught my eye. I thought, oh my goodness, what's going on here? Sunshine Coast Primary School cracks down on candy canes in Christmas cards. A Sunshine Coast school, according to the abc.net.au news site, is requesting parents refrain from including candy canes in Christmas cards. Budrum Mountain State School Deputy Principal Michael Allen sent an email with the request to all parents saying, we have a lot of parents who do not wish for their children to access lollies during the school day. The email cited dental and health concerns for the request. Quote, students may start eating them early in the morning, and as they contain a lot of sugar, this is not ideal from a dental hygiene perspective. As you would also be aware, increased sugar levels for some students can affect their ability to make appropriate behaviour choices and engage productively in learning. If different students bring in cards on different days over the 2 week period, students could potentially be receiving and eating candy canes every day. So before we do our I'll Do Better tomorrow, I'm curious about your reaction to the Budrum Mountain State School request that candy canes not be brought into school by the kids for all of their classmates. Yay or nay? Fair or excessive? Is it like peak 2022 or are you kind of cool with it?
I think it's a bit of an overreach.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Go on.
So I don't do candy canes with the kids at all.
Because they get so many of them anyway.
No, because they don't like them.
Well, there's that too. But
they come home with all of these candy canes that they don't like or they don't want. And lots of children don't like peppermint flavoured candy. And because obviously we try really hard to not, encourage candy, over the years I've found different ways to do things. So one year I just did Super Dupers, but I didn't freeze them. So they had to go home.
I remember that.
But it worked for the younger kids. But the older kids, they're really clever, right? They just hoed into it and just drank it.
Can you imagine drinking a warm
So that
Super
didn't
Duper?
work for the older kids, but for the younger kids it did. It delayed it and it meant mum and dad got to decide when and how they received it.
That's so creative though. Can I just pause on that? Like you've said it so flippantly, but if we don't want to just do what everyone else is doing, we can still do something fun. And sending a little Christmas card with a Super Duper, and these kids were stoked. And I
just made a little tag that said, thanks for helping make 2021 or whatever it was, Super Duper or something.
Yeah,
you
great.
know, just fun little things because our children naturally want to give. And so that's actually been the joy of the Christmas lead up with the kids is working out what they can give to their friends. So this year, Miss 8 found Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah.
She's been watching all of her friends and, you know, all the talk about it, and she really, really wanted one. And thankfully we were in the junk shop, so it wasn't your, trademarked Elf on the Shelf, and cost me a few dollars.
I didn't know that they were expensive. I just figured that there was some junk.
$55.
No, are you serious? For an Elf on the Shelf?
Yes. And you can get a boy or a girl. Anyway, I digress. So she wanted this Elf on the Shelf. So I said to her, the only way we could have an Elf on the Shelf is if she was Santa's helper, which she readily agreed to.
Okay.
But while we were there, we found these little straws, curly straws, with two little elves giving each other a hug. And I thought, how cool to give your friends something that's a bit Christmassy, but it doesn't really contain any sugar. So this year she gave them little straws with two little elves on them.
And what I love about what you've said is the creativity. So you're suggesting that the school is a little bit over the top in suggesting this. I'm actually kind of sympathetic to it because I don't want my kids eating excessive junk food, those candy cane. I mean, the quality of that food, it's not even food, it's just appalling.
Well, I guess after reading that sugar book, it just highlighted pretty much most of the lunch boxes are full
of sugar anyway
as well. So
yeah.
we're getting upset about, the things that we know are full of sugar, but we're actually oblivious to all the hidden sugar that our children are eating every day of the week.
Yeah. So I think I'm with you mostly, though, and that is I reckon it's a little bit harsh. Primary school kids, like you said, they want to give, but I love what you've said in that we can just be creative, whether it's thanks for a super-duper year or the straws or whatever it might be. There are so many different ways that we can give out cards and give a little treat of some kind that may or may not contain sugary stuff. But at the end of the day, I also think they're kids, right? Like, they're kids. They're going to eat so much sugar and crappy, junky, rubbishy stuff over the next few weeks. What does it really matter if they get stuck into a few candy canes? And like you said, they don't really love them that much anyway, do they? Although they still eat them.
Did the article acknowledge the divide in the community?
Yeah.
Has everybody been
It looks like most parents sort of shrugged their shoulders. So there's a dietitian at the school who got right behind it, said, yeah, absolutely, this is a good thing. And there were a few parents who were like, oh, it's a bit of a shame, but yeah, whatever. So I don't think anyone's really up in arms. It didn't make front page headlines or anything, but it caught my attention just because it's one of those things where as we're becoming more health conscious, more environmentally conscious, as the community, as our society is looking for ways that we can improve the world and improve humanity and improve ourselves, candy canes at Christmas in schools are the next on the chopping block. And I thought it was worthy of note. We'd love to know what you think. Podcasts, that's podcasts with an S, at happyfamilies.com.au. Has Buderim Mountain State School gone too far? Or do you reckon it's fair enough? We would love to know your thoughts. Now, every Friday we have an episode called I'll Do Better Tomorrow, where we analyse the week that was and try to work out if we can be better parents or if we're doing it really well, kicking goals, doing like just nailing our parenting. And Kylie, what's your I'll Do Better Tomorrow for the week that was?
Well, without you knowing it, your lead into today's podcast is actually a beautiful segue for my I'll Do Better Tomorrow.
Okay.
It really is just about celebrating the small wins that we have. So often, I know I personally get so caught up in the day-to-day running of family life that I often miss those little gems, these little moments where if I just took a few deep breaths, I could see just how much progress has actually taken place. So Christmas is 100% my favourite celebration of the year. Probably Valentine's would be my next. And I love doing things with the kids, and they love being able to give things to their friends and their teachers. And so it kind of becomes a whole production for a few days and weeks in early November to try and get it all worked out with them. But Miss M, she's 8, and usually she gets quite bored. She's excited in the beginning, and then I ask her to help, and she kind of rolls her eyes and like, oh, can I come back later? And by the time she comes back, I'm done because I'm on a roll. And so this year I said to her, she wanted to give to 4 different teachers. So she has 2 teachers in her classrooms, but then she has a couple of teacher aides that come in. And so I said to her, well, are you going to write letters to them? And she said, yeah. And I said, would you like some help? And she said, if you could just write the big words out so that I can copy those. And I said, well, if you just do a template, you could write the same letter for every teacher and just change the name to make it easy. Well, she didn't take the easy road this year.
Right.
Normally, she doesn't actually write the cards at all. She'll just do Love Emily and maybe draw a picture next to it. But this year, she was really thoughtful about the teachers and the things that they had done for her. And she actually personalised each letter, each little card for them and filmed them up and then drew a picture that she thought that teacher would love. So they were all different. It's such a small thing, but it was just so beautiful to see her giving heart, developing and growing, and her recognition that it's not a cookie cutter gift. This is something that she wanted her teacher to know specifically for her.
Personalised.
That was important.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
And I just loved it. But like I said, sometimes we just get caught up in it and we actually can miss those little moments. And for me, that was just a beautiful moment and little insight into her heart and how it's maturing and growing.
It's beautiful. So my I'll Do Better Tomorrow, fairly brief, but a bit of a reminder. So on Monday, I was on ABC Radio Western Australia having a conversation with the presenter about what happens when our children feel accepted and what happens when our children feel rejected by us, and the different ways that we can unintentionally create an environment where they feel rejected. Really great conversation, lots and lots of things to talk about there. But after I got off the phone, I had the interview with 2 of our kids, our 15-year-old and our 12-year-old, in the car. They'd been listening to the whole interview. So I sat down in the living room once we'd gotten home and the interview was over, and I said, hey, just curious, you heard what I was talking about. Do you feel like you are unconditionally accepted, or do you sometimes feel rejected? And they told me that sometimes they feel rejected. Not often, but sometimes. They feel mostly accepted, but every now and again they feel rejected. And it was just that I guess, uppercut. It was like that little punch to the chops that reminded me that it's really hard to get this right all the time. Every now and again, we have to correct our kids, but their feelings of acceptance are fragile and they can be shattered really easily when we step in with too much correction, when we override their autonomy, when we make comments to them about what they're doing or how they're doing or why they need to do things better. They can internalize that as, I'm not worthy, I'm insufficient. They can feel rejected. And so my I'll do better tomorrow is to work harder on that unconditional acceptance, to move away from rejection and move more towards acceptance so that they know, no matter what, that they are accepted. Really short, really simple, but a really important reminder, I think, about why that matters. If people are interested in finding out more about that, there's an entire chapter on it in my book, 21 Days to a Happier Family, including a checklist. Or you can go back about a week and a bit on our Facebook page, where there's a whole lot of beautiful graphics up there and on Instagram as well about a week ago, talking about whether we're rejecting or accepting. So that's it. That's I'll Do Better Tomorrow for Friday, December the 2nd. Thanks so much for listening to the Happy Families podcast. We really appreciate the work of Justin Rulon from Bridge Media and Craig Bruce, our executive producer, for making the podcast sound great. And we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. On Monday, with Christmas just around the corner, when should kids get a phone? Is there a golden rule, a perfect age? We're going to be discussing that and a whole lot more on the Happy Families podcast. Thanks so much for listening and have a great weekend.